And we continue on the conversation of big multi deals here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, here on WCPT 820 AM, Heartland Signal, and WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago, on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. As we see ESPN and Fox have a bundle upcoming together for their streaming services, another big time media company has made a huge deal. And this is coming to us from the Uncrowned over at Yahoo Sports. UFC agrees to groundbreaking $7.7 billion deal with Paramount and CBS, ditching pay-per-view model. This is from Chris Quick over at the Uncrowned. UFC is coming to Paramount and CBS in 2026. The company agreed to an outstanding 7-year, $7.7 billion contract with the company. Dana White and Paramount announced Monday. Dana White confirmed the move in a post on Instagram, saying it, quote, puts UFC amongst the biggest sports in the world. And this is the entire quote. This historic deal with Paramount and CBS is incredible for UFC fans and our athletes. For the first time ever, fans in the U.S. will have access to all UFC content without a pay-per-view model, making it more affordable and accessible to view the greatest fights on a massive platform. This deal puts UFC amongst the biggest sports in the world. The exposure provided by Paramount and CBS networks under this new structure is a huge win for our athletes and anyone who watches and loves the sport, end quote. And the article continues, Paramount confirmed both the length and cost of the deal in a news release on Monday. While the average annual cost of the deal is $1.1 billion, the payment structure is weighted, with Paramount paying less money early in the deal. The deal is only for UFC's U.S. rights. Paramount is interested in buying the company's international rights when they become available, it said in Monday's release. It's a bold new step for the UFC. Under the new deal, it's ditching the pay-per-view model. All UFC events, including 13 number shows and 30 fight nights, will be included as part of a normal subscription with Paramount Plus. Select number events will also be simulcast on CBS, so UFC on CBS. Under UFC's previous rights deals, premium events could only be viewed via pay-per-view. Fans looking to watch events under UFC's contract rights need to own an ESPN Plus subscription and pay an additional $79.99 for premium UFC fights. That model will continue through 2025. So any fans who want to watch UFC 319, which has happened here in Chicago, will still need to go through that process. Starting in 2026, all fans will need to watch UFC events as a subscription to Paramount Plus. And check out the entire article over at The Uncrowned on Yahoo Sports. UFC agrees to a groundbreaking $7.7 billion deal with Paramount and CBS, ditching pay-per-view model. So beyond just the big money deal, beyond just the idea that there's a potential 4th of July card that will be in the front yard of the White House that Dana White and Donald Trump have talked about that will be simulcast on CBS, beyond all that, the simple fact that the UFC was able to land a major deal with $1 billion being given to them and ditching the pay-per-view model is more historic than almost anything we've talked about over the last 3 weeks. Think about the things we've spoken about. We've talked about ESPN and NFL Network coming together. ESPN now owning Red Zone and all these different assets. ESPN having the pay-per-view PLE rights to WWE. We've seen bundle packages where Fox is now having their own direct-to-consumer app, and they are now working with ESPN. We've seen deals with Netflix and Amazon trying to get all these different live sports. We are about to see Peacock and NBC get back the NBA. And still, this deal, beyond just all the controversy, all the power slap, Dana White and his wife getting into it, Donald Trump, the fan, everything that you may think of, their deal, this UFC to CBS deal might be the most impactful because they are getting rid of the pay-per-view model. They're not the first company to do that. If you're a wrestling fan, you know that back in 2014, 2013, around the time of the WWE Network, You were paying $9.99 a month, $10 a month, and you got all the original programming and every single pay-per-view. Same thing with Peacock. And if you're watching Netflix, we've seen this model before. But we've never seen it from a pro sport like boxing or MMA. And the simple fact that such a huge adjustment, where in my opinion, one of the worst experience as a consumer, as a fan of a product, was trying to give money to the UFC to get one of their pay-per-views, was some of the most unfriendly a disaster for consumers, if you will, to try to order a pay-per-view on ESPN Plus. One of the worst services you can have as a sports fan. To go from that to going to Paramount, who has done plenty of international soccer, has done football games, NFL football games, to go to simulcast on broadcast television. What a night and day difference. There are so many things to unpack about these stories in general. We could talk about so many off the field things, but at the end of the day, the only thing that mattered was live programming. What have you noticed about these big time deals is that when the world ended, these products, whether it was football, baseball, basketball, MMA, name it, they went on. They found a way to find little places around the country, and in the case of UFC in the Middle East, and they were able to give you a product. They were able to produce entertainment. That's why they're able to get this big deal. That's why it no longer matters the outcome or the way they are trying to promote the product. They have made their money already. I think for consumers, for the fan of UFC, this is a good thing. For the fighters themselves, I know there's fighter talk. It doesn't matter. The fighters are their own worst enemy. You know how much we love fighters here. We've had them on the show for years and years and years. They're their own worst enemy. So it doesn't matter. The UFC is not going to go 50-50 with them. They're not going to see a lot of that 7.7 billion. They might, but you're losing pay-per-view points. This isn't just clear black and white. But it is, if nothing else, a turning point in this genre of business, which is sports media. Live programming is king. Reality television in live sports programming is the ultimate king. And over the last 3-4 weeks, we have seen what value that has to these corporations that, by the way, are in themselves multi-billion dollars in debt and yet still are finding ways to consolidate, to cut, and still make these big time deals. But we might be seeing a UFC numbered fight at the White House on CBS. Crazy times, my friend. Crazy times. We keep things rolling here on the Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820 AM, heartlandsignal.com, WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.